these considerations that I always talk about, all my videos are basically to bring you guys to a level where you are more enjoying your tanks and less being stressful about them. My ultimate goal is for your fish to live a very long, very happy life, a very healthy life, reproduce for you as much as you desire and more, if that's what you desire, and reward you by giving you enjoyment and viewing pleasure. You want to enjoy your fish. And the more you get to enjoy your fish, the happier I am. So my entire channel is for that purpose. So it's the fish and the fish keeper in mind. So to make it easy for the fish keeper to give the fish the best environment possible. As less stress as possible for both. Not just for you, but also for the fish. But if you are stressed as a fish keeper, then chances are you're going to stress your fish. It's just how it goes, okay? If I'm worried about something, I'm going to do a water change. What happens? My fish gets stressed. If I don't need a water change, sometimes I might not. Like this tank, for example, would not need a water change for a few weeks. But if I did another big water change, unless I needed to take some water out, I'm stressing the fish again. If I move decorations because I think, oh, my fish are fighting, I might have to do this. If you do your research properly and you set up your tank properly and you establish your ecosystem properly and you don't overstock your mini little world, you can have a very balanced setup. And that is the goal. I mean, for my own tanks as well as all of your tanks, if I can help for it.
Produced by Mali.
Fish tanks Zen. This is my Zen room. This is a stress-free environment. And I was thinking about this earlier, and I was having a conversation with my friend about this as well. Dr. Thomas, who is a doctor himself, and he said it the best. He said, when I finish work, I go into my fish room. He'd have a 12-hour day, and he'll go in there. He said that he enters a new world, a different world. Each fish tank, he said, is a different world of its own. And it's something very similar for me. Before COVID, I had a very stressful job, which I'm probably going to return to after COVID, at least to occupy some of my time and to have, it's a fun job. I love it, but it's very stressful. It's very demanding, and it's long hours, 15, 16 hours sometimes. Certain times it's 3 days of 16 hours. Sometimes I've actually done 19-hour shifts. The longest shift I've done was 21 hours straight at one work site, and I had to go back to work the next day. There was no breaks. So it's a very demanding environment, and my fish are my stress reliever. So when I enter this room, for example, when I'm taking care of my fish, when I'm doing things in here, it shouldn't be stressful. Having whatever I have should not cause me any stress at all, aside from, when something, is not working the way it's supposed to. For example, if you get a disease in your fish room or something, then yes, of course, then that's a little bit of a stress. But obviously, if you follow the quarantine procedures that I have laid out in this channel, then that eliminates that stress. You're not going to get your existing fish sick, and if some of your incoming fish does get sick, then whatever, you're not attached to them, you just got them, they got sick, they died, but at least they didn't kill your other fish. Now, a great example for this is I actually recently picked up about 65 green neon tetras, okay? Now, Parachirodon simulants. I have a huge school, I have about 300 maybe, and I have a breeding group that's also spawning. I mean, I'm not spawning them, they are spawning in a tank. I find fry every once in a while. I found 3 the other day, and I pulled them out and I put them in a separate tank, trying to grow those 3 out separately just to make sure that they live. Just so I can say, they did spawn in my tank, but I'm by no means spawning these animals. It's naturally happening in the tank, and I'm not doing anything to it. So it's a complete luck situation, okay? There is some skill involved in the sense where I kind of did some research about the fish. I talked to the master aquarist, Heiko Blair, who told me exactly where these fish are found and what the water conditions are. And it kind of helped me, and I kind of tried to recreate that in a tank. And it did work, but I'm not getting any substantial amounts of fry. I'm not getting consistent fry. You know what I mean? It's only when I don't do a water change in there for like months and months, almost 6 months, the acid level builds up to the point where they do spawn. So if you guys are interested in seeing some of that, comment below and let me know. I'll, you know, make a separate video about that. But today I made a video about doing a water change in these tanks. Now, I did a water change, and I'll post that video after this so you guys can see the amount of work that I did to get this tank from where it was to where it is now that you're seeing. Okay, it wasn't a lot. It took me about 35 minutes, and I actually, in turn, I actually took water out of here, and I actually ended up doing a water change on this tank as well. So both tanks got a water change in 35 minutes. This has nitrate resins in there, by the way. So if you guys are interested in learning about nitrate resins, comment below. If there's enough people requesting, I will do separate tests. I have several kinds of resins now, and I am loving the resins. Like, oh my god, I'm really liking the results I'm getting up here. No nitrates, like, you know, whatever. So great, I'm happy. Very low nitrates. It's not noticeable on my meters, you know. So stress-free, you know. So things that we do has to work to reduce the amount of stress that we have. And if you are stressed, then I would say you need to dial back a little bit and refocus yourself. Aside from the, you know, things that could go wrong, like accidents can happen. At that point, yes, it's quite stressful. Like, I mean, if something were to break in here, I would be stressed, which is, thank God, not happened. You know, like something like that, or like a power outage, you know, that is stressful. Obviously, at that point, if you don't have backups and stuff like myself, we don't have power outages here where I live. Thank God, I haven't had to suffer through any, but I'm actually looking at getting a generator so that when that does happen, or if that ever does happen, God forbid, at that point, I would be ready for that eventual unexpected scenario, and it would be a very stress-free moment in my fish keeping hobby. So, you know, hopefully it doesn't come to it, but I am going to get a generator just in case, because I do live in a country where it is quite cold, and our power grid is a-okay. Like, I mean, we deal with winter, so our power grid is very well winterized. Thank you, Canada. Thank you, God. You know, so stress-free. You know, you don't want to worry about things. Like, the less worry you have, the better your experience is with your hobby. Because at the end of the day, you're not keeping these animals to be constantly doing water changes. You're not keeping these animals to be constantly doing maintenance. You're not keeping them for any of those things. Those are what entails with the animal, right? But the bottom line is you're keeping the animals to enjoy them, to enjoy this different world in your living room, or in your fish room, or in your house at somewhere, you know, like wherever you decide to keep your aquariums, you are creating these little worlds, these miniature little, you know, cubicle environments. So they're basically like habitat modules if you were to go to space. Each habitat module is its own little environment that you maintain, that you keep alive, and you do all the things that needs to happen to it so that you can ultimately enjoy it. So if the enjoyment part is less than the amount of stress, then please dial it down. You know what I mean? And what I mean by dialing it down does not necessarily mean have less fish. Well, yes, that's one of the things. Like, if you have too many fish in the tank and they're always killing each other, there's one fish always bullying other fish. If these type of things are going on, then maybe it's time to reduce the population, give some fish back to the pet store, or to a friend, or sell them at a local fish club, something like that. Another thing is, if you have too many tanks, like me, and you find yourself spending too much of your time maintaining the tanks, like I would be sometimes, you have to dial it back and say, you know what, how can I actually reduce my workload and increase the efficiency of what I have going on? So that's one of the reasons why I'm using this nitrate resin, for example, is to reduce my personal workload so that I don't have to do as many water changes while still maintaining a low nitrate environment, because this is a breeding tank and I want my fish to breed. I also want some dither fish for my fish, which are my ultimate angels, which are hiding in the corner. They're like afraid of me. These are wild fish. I've had them for about 8 months now, I think, and they're still afraid of me. But if I sit here long enough and not do anything, they will come out. So that's a good thing for them. But, you know, it's stress-free, you know what I mean? Another thing I want to say is, the more stressed a person is about whatever is going on, the more things that they're going to do, the more, you know, you're going to put your hands in there, the more you're going to do whatever. You might change water too much, you might change the filter media too often, which I never change my filter media. If you ask me how often I change my filter media, the answer is never. Like, I have media in here that's probably 20 years old. These filters are 5-6 years old, some of them. I've had them set up before these tanks were Pleco tanks. And I don't change them, I don't wash them, I don't pull these out every 6 months, and none of that. You know, it's established, it's functioning, and it works. You know what I mean? And when the sponge degrades eventually, I might have to replace the sponges. You know, same thing with my sponge filters. 20 years down, 10 years down the road, I do take the sponges out because they get kind of, they break down eventually. So you might have to replace those, but aside from that, it's not a lot of work. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be. Like even the gravel bed, sand bed, I will put a whole video about me cleaning this tank so you guys can see that, how much work it was for me to maintain this tank after 6-7 weeks of complete neglect. You know what I mean? And it's looking, right now, look at it. It's great. I didn't pull out any filters. I didn't pull out any sponges. I didn't even do gravel whack. I just kind of like went over about a ½ inch above the sand layer, and if there was any loose debris that was sitting on top of the sand bed, I kind of like took them out just to give it a little help for my filter. But if I didn't do that, like for example this tank, I didn't do that. I just took water out of here to fill this up. Okay, so I took 90% of the water out of this tank, and I took 50% of the water or 40% of the water from here, and I filled this back up, and I filled the rest in here with aged tap water, and the rest here in the back with aged tap water. Everything is perfect, everything is happy. My tanks are both pristine now, and I'm good for another 6 weeks at least with these two setups. Because I do have a heavy plant load, the filters are very well established. There's a big sand bed, so nitrifying bacteria is very well colonized in all these surfaces, as well as the plants, the glass, the sponge, the plates, all the caves, all everywhere. Okay, and then on top of that, there's a huge plant load especially on this tank, but as well as this tank, that sucks up any nitrates, phosphates, other trace elements, and anything like that, and even takes up some calcium carbonate. So like when I put new water, for example, within a few days, it'll pretty much deplete the entire calcium carbonate content. So my water becomes super soft and the pH is, you know what I mean? Things like that. So it's perfect for my scenario, for my situation. But if I were now keeping African cichlids, for example, would not work in this tank, and my fish would constantly be struggling. I would have deaths, things like that, and I would not know why, because it's not established for that type of fish. You know what I mean? So these considerations that I always talk about, all my videos, are basically to bring you guys to a level where you are more enjoying your tanks and less being stressful about them. So, I mean, my ultimate goal is for your fish to live a very long, very happy life, a very healthy life, reproduce for you as much as you desire and more, if that's what you desire, and reward you by giving you enjoyment and viewing pleasure. You want to enjoy your fish, and the more you get to enjoy your fish, the happier I am. So my entire channel is for that purpose. So it's the fish and the fish keeper in mind. So to make it easy for the fish keeper to give the fish the best environment possible, as less stress as possible for both. Not just for you, but also for the fish. But if you are stressed as a fish keeper, then chances are you're going to stress your fish. It's just how it goes, okay? If I'm worried about something, I'm going to do a water change. What happens? My fish gets stressed. If I don't need a water change, sometimes I might not. Like this tank, for example, would not need a water change for a few weeks. But if I did another big water change, unless I needed to take some water out, I'm stressing the fish again. If I move decorations because I think, oh, my fish are fighting, I might have to do this. If you do your research properly and you set up your tank properly and you establish your ecosystem properly and you don't overstock your mini little world, you can have a very balanced setup. And that is the goal. I mean, for my own tanks as well as all of your tanks, if I can help for it. So I think that's what I want to leave you guys with, is essentially this is my core goal for making these videos. And I hope it does help some of you guys or all of you guys that are watching. And comment below and let me know what your own experiences are and your own thoughts are in terms of this, and how stressful your tanks are, because I would really like to know if I am helping you guys, or if it's actually working, or if I need to make different videos or more videos like this, more whatever. So comment and let me know. I would love to know your opinions. And as always, thank you so much for watching my videos. I love you all. I'll see you in the next video. God bless you.